Gracie Jiu Jitsu rocks. Welcome to the Gracie Jiu Jitsu Rocks podcast, a podcast dedicated to Gracie Jiu Jitsu and all things Gracie, including self-defense, competition, anti-bullying, women's self-defense and empowerment, nutrition, and most especially, the people involved in Gracie Jiu Jitsu. This podcast is for the average Joe. It's for anyone who practices, trains, teaches, or just loves to talk about or hear about Gracie Jiu Jitsu. We'll explore the lives of Gracie Jiu Jitsu practitioners, how they got involved in the art, and what effect it's had on their lives. So buckle up and enjoy the ride. Welcome to episode 154 of the Gracie Jiu Jitsu Rocks podcast. As always, I'm your host, Marty Josie, and thanks for listening. Today, my guest will be Priit Mihkelson, and I'm very excited to have him on the show, and we'll do that in just a moment. But before we do, let's start with a quote, and that is, "Reduced to its core, Jiu-Jitsu is the employment of intelligence and skill to overcome brute strength and aggression." And that's from Master Renzo Gracie and John Danaher in their book, Mastering Jiu-Jitsu. All right, Priit Mihkelson is a Jiu-Jitsu black belt who travels the world teaching his unique approach to Jiu-Jitsu. He's very active involved in the BJJ Globetrotters camps, and in this interview we do talk about his Defensive Jiu Jitsu, which consists of 5 positions: the turtle, panda, running man, baby bridge, and hawking. If you're not familiar with these, there are plenty of videos out on YouTube where you can get a sample of those. He talks about his philosophy behind the defensive BJJ and how it's grown and how it's evolved and where it's going. Get into his journey, kind of where he grew up in Estonia and what that was like and what his journey's been like. So I know you're going to enjoy this interview. He's a very interesting person. After the interview, please make sure you stick around for the Make a Difference, Make an Impact segment. Now, without further ado, let's meet Priit. All right, I'm speaking with Priit Mihkelson. How was that?
Pretty good.
All right,
yes,
all right.
good.
Yeah, like you said, English speakers have a hard time with that, but it's a great name.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, well, welcome to the show. This is a thrill for me. I'm a big fan of your work and what you've got going on, so I'm really happy to be talking to you today.
I'm happy to hear that. Always, like people say, Priit, you talk too much. So obviously I like to talk. So I'm happy to be in a podcast.
Nice. So we got a number of things I want to talk to you about, but let's just start with, I know you've been traveling a bit. You're currently in Germany. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so traveled today in the morning. There's a lateral thinking jiu-jitsu camp here. Octavio Curo, Wim Debuter, and me. This is a third attempt. So first attempt, I think, worked 2 years ago. I think worked really good. It's surprisingly good because there was no plan. We were coming together and we just discussed things, and then the seminar took off of the topics we discussed, and it worked surprisingly well. I was, usually I like that, there's a topic, then blah, 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 I can prepare. And then there's like, let's get together and let's, talk. And then people observe what we do. And so I was like, oh no, somebody has to lead and everything. Second attempt, Octavio was, it was last year, so it was COVID time. So Octavio was trapped, I think, in Italy. So we did it with Wim. So, I think we did it, but I think we already know what to improve on that. So second attempt. And then third one, I'm also very excited because now it's again the three of us, and it starts tonight. And I'm happy and I'm humbled, so to speak, to be in that group. And we'll see what this is gonna be, because it is a different seminar. I've been in the seminars, I've done the seminars, but this is in a very good way, this is the weirdest one, because we don't know what we're gonna do. We just go, and then we'll see what happens. And people who actually come to the seminar, they are aware of that. So it also draws in certain crowd
Right.
that is that wants to see something happen. So, and the expectations are different than just coming to the see techniques or survival or whatever.
Right.
So I'm a little bit, again, like a little bit nervous. You never know.
Sure.
And then, yeah, so I'm excited for a weekend in that sense.
Well, you have to get a little bit out of your comfort zone to do it like that, but it's also very exciting because you don't know exactly where it's going to lead, but I'm sure it's going to turn out great. I actually like both formats. I like structured seminars, but I also like, what you're describing is, hey, whatever materializes and happens while we're there, we're going to go with it. So really cool.
Yeah, so it's, like I said, it's I think it's harder to sell it to people. Like people sometimes want topics. Okay, I come here to learn armbar escapes, or I learn something about guard, that you never know what's going to be.
Right.
So you have to be ready for this, and you just wanna maybe it draws in more experienced crowd. We'll see what happens today. So because I don't know how beginner friendly or whatever, because sometimes we have I don't know, advanced topics or something, or
Sure.
problems that we discuss. So, but yeah, I'm excited to do it a little bit differently than I usually do. So it kind of, like you said, it gets me out of the comfort zone.
Right, and that's where we grow. So good for you. I'm excited that you're traveling a lot and getting more gigs, so to speak, because your message and your work is spreading, and it's good to see. So let's talk about what you do mostly. I know you do a lot of things, but you're known for your defensive jiu jitsu, and it's 5 positions. One thing and I'm just going to ask you to describe the whole thing as a set, and then the 5 positions to people who haven't heard of it or aren't really familiar with it. One thing I like about it is it seems to be ever evolving. You're open to continuously going forward and growing with this, but describe what is defensive jiu-jitsu and what are the 5 positions, and a little bit about each, if you would.
So when we named this, actually, we were like, thinking about how to name this, because we didn't want it to be a style. So if we say defensive BJJ, I think it's very easy to say. We had when we thought about how to name it, we had different ideas, but then we ended up with defensive. But because it is a new idea, so to speak, and I don't think it's not a style. I'm really curious about the defensive side of jiu-jitsu. This is my ongoing research. I guess the story is that I've done jiu-jitsu for 22 years, I think. And, half true, half joke. It is kind of boring. Usually people, if you do it for that long, you start to go more deeper, or compete more, or you have to have certain reason why you stick around, or maybe it's good time to also do something else and find other hobby to get proficient. So really that research keeps me ticking, and like slowly step, like small baby steps, I've been dragged into the defensive side of that, because I really feel it's understudied. The upper body part even more, so I'm trying to do my part and give the people that I train with, try to give them better answers. And he does drag me to this many rabbit holes, or deep rabbit holes, to actually understanding and building and seeing that there are those structures, as weird as they are, and that in that chaos we have certain structures. It's not like surprising in a way also, because in boxing we have a boxing stance, and everybody has a little bit their interpretation. If you do enough boxing, you will find your own little bit tweaks to that. But we can say there is like an optimal middle to start, and then you play with that and discover how you do it and what's your style, so to speak. And there seems to be those structures defensively that we have encountered. So for, let's say, there are 5. We have a hawking, we have a running man, we have a sitting turtle, aka panda, we have a turtle, and we have a baby bridge now. And so each of them is a separate stance. We can really differentiate enough away from others that it's a, it is identified as separate branch we can study. They're all obviously connected, and it can be a flow between them, but we can identify them. It's like, like a belt, you have white belt, blue, purple, and brown, and it's a flow, but we can identify that right now you're a blue belt and right now you're purple, but it's essentially a flow of skill, but we identify them as also certain pit stops there. So, and we have found so far 5, and it's a deeper conversations because baby ridge we actually consider now it's a range. It's like let's say mini baby bridge, and then it's a full extension max version of this. So it's ever evolving, like you said. It's also I'm very careful when I'm accepting this behavior, like description as ever evolving, because I don't want it to sound like it's like, tomorrow I do this and after tomorrow I do that, and it's like flips like this all the time. But it's because I feel also because the defensive structures, survival, back stuff, side control, turtle, they're understudied. So I expect to meet more changes, because we're studying more very new, so to speak, in a right context, put like a new area. So we will have certain changes that happening fast because we discover. But later I would also expect that we have fewer of them because we studied it more, and those changes happen more rarely. But obviously everything is, so to speak, in motion. So I would expect small tweaks here and there happen all the time. And that's okay. And if some newer version helps to solve more problems than the previous one, I'm happy to change my mind.
Yes.
And that seems to be like every other field is doing, and that's what the open mind is about. And I don't want to change my mind because just something new comes in, and then I flip flop, so it kind of also makes me dangerous to follow, because if I change the mind, the wind blows here and there, so it makes me very unpredictable. And but I really change my mind when you have to, and then I have my reasoning, and we tested before, and then so that's the what you described.
Yes.
And I try to be very careful about it because I can lose the, so to speak, the credibility.
Yeah. So, and that is a nice distinction. You're not ever just like changing it at will completely. You're just making tweaks and refinements. And one thing I really do like about it is you compare it to boxing a lot. And in boxing, you have, your basic punches, and you're not, as you evolve within that and get better, you're not constantly evolving more strikes, right? More types of punches.
Yeah,
you're using the basics, but you're putting them together in different combinations. You're tweaking different, modes of it, and learning to use those basic tools in a lot better way and more refined way. And that's what I like. It really seems similar to what you're doing, and I really like that.
Yeah, so I have to. Our sport, our art, whatever, is not different than basketball or boxing or wrestling. So it has to follow the same things. And in those sports, they also have stances. They're very dynamic, but we can identify certain. There is a position where the cross punch is the strongest. How our feet has to be apart, wide, whatever, the shoulders, the knuckles. And we know that the end range, there's a structure, and then we identify the hook, where's the body weight has to be. And first, for like a what is it, lead arm hook. We know the body, we can't, kind of put the weight on the same leg we are punching the side. If you punch with a right hook, you don't usually put a lot of weight on the right leg, because they would throw you off like a centrifugal force. So we know there's certain stances, and that was really surprising actually when we started to find those things. The first one was what we call the grilled chicken. In English language, it's rotisserie chicken. In Estonian language, it's the same thing basically. So that was the first structure we kind of stumbled on. That was I'll always tell the story of the ADCC Super Match 2013 of Braulio and Galvao. And that was Galvao had super hard time passing Braulio's guard, and Braulio didn't do much in that sense. And he kept certain structure, and Galvao had really hard time. And I was like, okay, what is that, and what is that structure, and how it moves, and what's the dynamics of it, and then it took us a long time to figure out the turtle. There's a backstory of one guy in Sweden, Erik Linden, that kind of was a turtle guy, and then he couldn't really say why he's that good. So it took us a lot to figure it out, and then we understood basically it's grilled chicken flipped around, and I was like, oh shit, and that it was that close, that we were looking for something else. And it just flipped. I was like, oh, it's already two positions are very similar, And then in some point came the, sitting turtle. That was basically that rotisserie chicken, like sit up, And it can be a butterfly guard, obviously, but if your head is down and somebody is behind you, we call it sitting turtle. Or even like upright side control, so to speak. Then, if you're playing butterfly guard, like equal cheeks on the mat, so to speak, like a neutral butterfly guard, not on one arm or one butt cheek, then if somebody just, suddenly goes around and goes behind you, it becomes defensive structure, and we call it sitting turtle, aka panda or aka upright side control. So, and I know Tellus played a lot, so this is Tellus inspired. I think I play it more than him in that sense, that I made it a thing, but I always credit him that he was the guy that played it differently a bit, one leg pulled in a way, and one leg straight. And again, a similar structure, so to speak. You go to turtle, you go to rotisserie chicken, you go to the sitting turtle. It's like, oh, it's already three structures that really similar. In a way, everything is pulled in, and then the weird ones was what we call hawking. So it always comes the closet the guy was a genius. So is this move. So it's always like, it brings a little bit controversy, the name, but it is what it is. And so that was a twisting position, and it took a while to figure out the twisting ones, and the so to speak, like in a quotation marks, the new one, the baby bridge, is also a twisting, so to speak, position. Now we're at the moment we're trying to figure out that, like, is the neutral, so to speak, neutral stance, like in wrestling, there's a neutral stance and staggered stance. In boxing, there's a neutral stance, and a staggered stance. So now we're like questioning. I'm actually questioning my own work. That clearly I know the neutral stance works, and we've been testing this. But now very interesting to find out about the staggered stances, and we have two of them at the moment. They seems to work together nicely, and they so to speak, help the system. But now we're thinking about also changing the turtle a little bit to be a more staggered turtle a little bit than playing, because a lot of sports, they use staggered stances. So we kind of have to also, because staggered stance brings certain forward let's say forward or just the overall mobility into the game. But you also expose yourself, like, if you do it in a kickboxing match, staggered stance, you expose yourself to leg kicks, like low kicks and stuff. But you also are closer to, check them also, obviously, but also, you can move closer to the opponent faster because you have that staggered stance. So it's like a give and take, like you have trade-offs. So it's been like, that's why I don't know a lot of people that are studying those structures. So maybe they're out there. So if somebody's listening, people can always reach out. I'm very obsessed about them because we call them 0 points, and they really help me to describe even like the dynamics of jiu-jitsu. And I usually use them as trenches. So people can camp out, and if you're a more beginner, you use more trenches. You get out of trench, you move a meter, get to the trench, you move a meter, get to the trench. And if you're more advanced, then you use less trenches, you run faster, you avoid certain things, your transitional skills are better. So you can use trenches to camp out less. So I find it's a very helpful tool to definitely for beginners, and why not also to people that are more experienced. So that's the overall philosophical idea about that you can kind of camp out, and obviously you can use them also the way they're not intended, to kind of stall out the game and do nothing. So you can use them, you can not use them at all, because it's very transitional game, and you can overuse them, like just camp out all the time. But I think life should happen in between.
Yes.
Use them in a right way, create opportunities. So the typical criticism I get is like, I'm making people stalling and making people passive.
Right.
But we can change those things in drills, and that's clearly not my intent, so to speak. And then it's kind of like a personal responsibility that how you use that.
Yeah.
It's a tool, and you can clearly misuse it also. But why not?
No, I love that. And there is a danger of I wouldn't call it a danger, but a tendency for people that are new to it and beginners to camp out there, and that's okay, right? That's what they need at that level. And then later, if there's more comfort, they can live in the transitions much more and make it dynamic from one thing to another. And you also speak to like even in the turtle, there's the basic way where you're just really hunkered down, and then you like to play more up on your elbows or hands, more like a wrestler's referee position. And so as you get more advanced in this, you can, and the risks and the rewards of each position, you can kind of play with that. So I like that. I love the turtle. Sometimes it gets a bad rap, but I've loved it for years, and I love Tellus's work. So it was a very natural thing to gravitate towards yours as well. Great stuff. I think I heard in a video that you when you were doing the Running Man, you originally saw Pedro Sauer video. Is that where you got the idea?
Saulo Ribeiro.
Saulo Ribeiro. Okay.
Yeah, it's actually, I think the video is still publicly on YouTube. It's one of the clips from his early, jiu-jitsu DVDs.
Gotcha.
I think that it was done by Buddha Videos or whatever. I think people can still find it. It's, I think the name is inspired and position. I do it a bit differently. He's, bottom arm, and the way he's positioned, I think it's a little bit different. And I don't have contact to him that maybe he has changed that, and then he does something else, and this position has evolved because I do it a little bit differently.
Yes.
Saulo was the first one, let's say. If the history is a bit fuzzy, but
sure.
I would credit him in that sense that he was famously said that in a video clip somebody was behind him, and he was doing this stuff, and he said like, don't worry, like he's just behind me, he's not gonna take my back, And I was like, that this guy, 10-time world champion, whatever, says something like this, puts his name, that it's okay, puts his name in front of the quote or whatever, the sentence, that it's okay to turn your back and it's not going to be a death sentence,
Yeah, and that's what's so refreshing about your work to me, because I'm always looking, I'm attracted to kind of thinking outside the box kind of things, and non-traditional things, methods, techniques, that kind of thing. And it flies, against a lot of traditional wisdom by don't give up your back, but you're willing to do that because you know how to be safe, but also transition to other things. And that really appeals to me. For me, my foundation is self-defense jiu-jitsu. I train, at first for that, but after that, you want to have fun and be on the mat the rest of your life. And as you get older, you're not going to try to match the attributes and speed and strength of younger people. So anything that gives you some defensive things to slow it down, sometimes frustrate them because they're not used to what you're presenting, and then staying safe, and then you can transition to more offensive things when needed. But it really gives you kind of a whole different tool set and way of relating to people when rolling.
Yeah, so I will mention now Mayweather also, because I'm not comparing myself to that great, but he got a lot of heat for what he's doing, and he's very defensive,
yes.
And also he's very active, and he's old, and he's still making a lot of money. So boxing is about how to not get hit,
Right.
So jiu-jitsu is also, I agree with you because, I'm 45. I can't match the aggressiveness of, young grapplers that are gonna hunt me, and I can't do all the time counter hunting and everything else. I cannot do it anymore. I cannot match that. So if I would only have that style that I cannot stay put, as soon as I slow down, I get, destroyed, and then
Yes.
I have to match their aggressiveness. I have to counter punch faster than them, attack between attacks. That's a very, very aggressive game, and I'm meant to lose that. So that's why I also get a lot of messages from older grappler, 35 up, so to speak, and they're like, yeah, this helps me to roll with younger people,
Definitely.
because I shut everything down, use the shields, so to speak, and then wait for them over exaggeration, and
Right.
then try to get them in transitions, and I don't gas out, so to speak, and also I think the younger people, it's good for them because they learn, let's say, to attack the more defensive players,
Mm-hmm.
not people that don't give them things easily.
Right. Right.
And they're always the attack is as good as your defense. So because that's I find also because jokingly the misunderstanding is, oh, Preet, you're so defensive and developing defensive things and blah blah blah. I'm actually interested to weed out the best attack. I want to see the best attack,
Yes.
because there's so many ways to attack, but how do I weed out the inefficient ones? So by building the best defensive system that I can, or using other outside help to and all the knowledge we have to put together the best defensive skills, and those skills will weed out the less efficient attacks. And then
Absolutely.
then yeah, then I have stuff to then I know exactly what to work on, what will work from the day one and to the high level, because clearly, certain things, certain variations will work, against the lower level, grapplers. So
Right.
how do we weed out the unnecessary variations? And good defense does that, and we can see it in a high level in leg locks, and these days people slipping heels, and the attacks has to reach a certain level and has to be practiced certain way that to counter the defense. So
Agreed.
and if defense, back in a couple of years ago, like 3, 4, whatever, when the leg lock defense wasn't that good, the heel hook mechanics were different, and people were more ripping and everything. And then as soon as the defense kicked in, people were actually doing even the breaking mechanics differently,
Mm.
and so it helps to really, really, like, I guess, to progress the sport. So that's also why I do it, because yes, of course, I want to give the people I train with the better answers, but also I really, really want to see like what kind of version of Kimura, whatever, they work the best. And this is the other side of that, why I kind of do it.
Yeah. Well, I've heard you say, why give up if you're giving your back to start from that position to train, why give both hooks? Or if you're in side control, why give them, the underhook and the cross face? And I do think we should certainly spend time in worst case scenarios, and so we can get comfortable in those. But for the most part, if you learn to hand fight and use your positioning and all that to not even get there, man, that skill, developing that skill is worth everything. I mean, because then you neutralize so many of the threats before they even get in deep. And then, of
Yeah.
course, you can spend time in the worst case scenarios too to see what you can do. But I love that approach.
Yeah, so I usually, when we talk about this to people, I give them really interesting, for me at least, that triggered me, really interesting way of looking at things that will, let's say, in a close guard top, the world seems to agree that you are on your knees and you have certain arms in front of you, and close guard top is about not giving the bottom person anything, kind of like attacking wise,
Right.
keeping your frames, and then looking for ways to open. So a mount we usually treat similarly. Mount is like somebody's in mount and you have your arms in front of you and mostly on your hips, under hips, sorry, and you're in a position at the bottom where you have given them nothing, so to speak, only just knee kind of access, and you're ready to start escaping. So you can argue that those are somewhat good habits. But why is it in a back control we start always with a seatbelt, let's say, yeah? Why it's like not like, let's say, bicep control would be like both biceps, so you don't have underhooks, you have both bicep controls like an NCAA wrestling, let's say.
Yep.
And then you know, from there we make more mistakes and we get seatbelts because seatbelt means you gave underhook away. So in side control also that it's different, because why is the neutral position that let's say not neutral, but even like let's say they consider it neutral, the position we start teaching escapes. Why is it like right away it's a cross-face underhook? Why it's the position where when a top arm can be around my neck, I don't mind it actually, and the bottom arm is not underhooking, like maybe the arms are on the same side, one is blocking the hip, one is around the neck a little bit. And why just right away start, because in mount also we don't start, cross-face underhook and then, start a mount escape, or in close guard we have, okay, I have already like a arm drag position, and then, okay, now you have to survive and open the legs, So in certain positions we act really smart, and I agree with this, that this is give them nothing and take from them everything. And then in side control, it's just give them everything away and then complain it's super hard to survive,
Right.
And so that is really weird that we do that. And so that also in somewhat has driven me to that, figuring out the side control, that I'm not giving everything. Maybe you passed my guard, but that's it, that I'm not giving you more. And then we can play with the idea that you said that we create more mistakes, we go deeper, and then
right.
Cross-face underhook, or even like let's go arm bars, close to arm bar situations, we dig deeper, but the first layer should be like, okay, I've messed up, but then I don't give them more than they need. If one mistake is good, that they already passed my guard, why give them cross-face underhook and let them lock their arms even,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's change gears for a minute, Priit, and talk about your journey. Like, where did you grow up? I know you're from Estonia. Where'd you grow up? What was that like? How did you get involved in martial arts initially?
Estonia. So I'm officially I'm from Estonia, and I think my birth certificate says Tallinn. But I guess I'm very proud of my heritage, because I always like to add there that actually I'm from the Saaremaa. That is the biggest island in Estonia.
Okay.
So my both parents, back in the day when it was 90s, that was a bigger deal, that if you are from the Saaremaa, it was mainland and islanders. There's two islands, big ones, Hiiumaa and Saaremaa. I was from the Saaremaa.
Okay.
And my both parents are from like born islanders. So it was like harder to get there because it was Russian border was we had two borders, so to speak, to get to the island. We had a border guard, and because there was some Russian military bases there, so it was extra little bit step to get to there. So my mom went to give birth to me in Saaremaa, because I got a stamp to my birth certificate that I'm born there, because then I could go home, so to speak.
Gotcha.
Because my parents were living back then already in Tallinn, the capital, but my grandparents and everything were in Saaremaa. So it could be a mess to go home a little bit, because there was guys with machine guns,
Mm-hmm.
So I like to think myself of born and bred islander. And the cool story about that is actually why I mentioned this. It's kind of like I think it's just a cool story, and there's some truth that I like it. And also I know it's like a little bit overreaching, but Islanders, Saaremaa guys were actually crazy Vikings. And because of the findings that they found something in Saaremaa, we Estonian findings have actually pushed the Viking age earlier than they thought it was. So that, so there's a lot of history there about war and Saaremaa guys being actually like Vikings and stuff. So that history is and like wild there. And even my mom's maiden last name meant something with a Viking. And now it's different. Now it's Mihkelson. So it kind of means like a Michael's son. So that's like the history a little bit. But yeah, so in Tallinn, and then I guess I played basketball from third grade till the ninth. I'm pretty obsessive. I was, I think I did. It's in youth, so I was I think in Estonia youth best player.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Yeah, I was kind of, I didn't have much friends and stuff, so I was very obsessive about basketball, and I was kind of chubby. I actually played left side of the field. I don't know how to call it so I was a left attacker, so to speak. So
Okay.
I was a little bit chubbier and heavier, so I had some fierce attacks from close, and I had a really good like outside throwing hand. And so that I played till ninth. We had actually sport class. Like I trained sometimes twice a day, mornings and evenings and stuff. So it was very competitive in that sense. And then school ended, the ninth grade, and then my mom is a German language teacher, was. So she didn't let me go to the high school because she knew what the guys were doing there, just having a one notebook for all the classes, so not caring about studying. So they thought just going to college and getting an occupation also aside of the high school diploma was the better choice. So I went to study telecommunication, and it was also funny era to go there because basically I studied how the signal will travel around the Earth,
Yeah.
how to fix radios, TVs, and everything. Back then it was era when everything changed because TVs had what we call kinescope. They were wider.
Right.
How do we call it in English? It was like they were big. There was something in there, that I don't know. In Estonia, we call it kinescope.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like a big box.
Yeah. There was
TV.
something,
Yeah.
mechanical thing. And then
Yes, yeah.
during my time in a school, everything shrinked. We had a plasma TVs and stuff.
Right, right.
And then I was in a school when mobile phones came, and our teachers were so skeptical. All the specialists, high-level specialists. And they all said that let's say all, yeah, maybe some of them, but at least I heard they said that the mobile phone is project born dead.
Wow.
And then what happened, we all know. They were completely wrong because
Yeah.
I understand why they said it because all the mobile phones were batteries were immensely big back then.
Yes, yes.
So they didn't see that how the consumer will actually carry them, and everything. So I was back then, and a second year, a couple of my friends were doing martial arts. So that's the story why I'm telling this. One was doing karate, and one was doing aikido. And kind of, I grew up also with Van Damme and Bruce Lee and all this blood
Oh,
sport, and
yes, for sure.
Enter the Dragon. So I clearly have seen those movies, and I guess I wasn't bullied at school because of the way I played, because they needed me, and because I was chubby. I guess I could have a harder life a little bit, but I wasn't. That kind of I think saved me a bit, and I had my moments when I had to defend myself, and a little bit because of my school peers, and also because my dad in a way wanted to make a man out of me or something. And also I was 17 back then, and then in some fall there was opening pretty close to our apartment house, that they opened a karate school, and yeah, that was that, and then I joined up, and then I did karate. I found friends there, so that was my social group. I was very obsessed about it, obviously. Then I had free time because I trained maybe Monday, Wednesday, Friday, maybe. So Tuesday, Thursday was free. So I joined Aikido also, and I did that. And so and then the history gets fuzzy always because I know my coach died in some point. So eventually the club, the technical, the teaching and everything was given to me.
Mm-hmm.
In end, and we because our coach, one of the Estonian karate pioneers, was also in his own journey, and he was trying to move towards more to softer style, so to speak, that that was really like blooming in Estonia, all the, Tai Chi stuff and Wing Chun and everything. So he was trying to infuse karate with some softer styles. And so we kind of got influenced by that. So eventually, after he died, we moved towards Wing Chun because we already did some trapping arms and everything, our karate. But before that, I know in some point I was also a Tai Chi coach. There was a American, Scott Rodell, that still this day I think travels to Estonia, and it was a Mi Chuan Tai Chi Chuan, and I know I also taught some classes. I taught Tai Chi, so that also fits somewhere in my journey there. But in the end, yeah, we went to Wing Chun. I found the first teacher from Finland. Then other guy that actually started a little bit before me, apparently, I found out later that he reached right away to Germany. He called to the boss. Back in the day, Wing Chun in Germany was very big. Kernspecht. The guy had a castle, I think, or still has. Really, he worked also, the guy, the Leung Ting and stuff. There was Leung Ting Wing Chun. So the German guys, they pointed German to become Estonian head coach. And so they kind of pushed the Finnish guy out. And then I started to do Wing Chun under him. But so now the Jiu-Jitsu connection comes because the other guy, it was more from the eastern part of Estonia. So I call him Russian, but I guess he was Estonian Russian, and but so to speak, in Russian in that good sense. And he was a former Sambo guy. So so he was telling me that where Wing Chun is good, stand up and everything, but you need also groundwork, and Sambo is better, so to speak. But then Sambo guy, his name is Dmitry Stachevich, taught us, did like a Sambo seminars, a couple of them, taught us some arm bars and leg locks and squeezing the kidneys and with a close guard and some old school stuff. And then that's, I very liked it from the first glance. I know some people when they see Jiu-Jitsu, they go like, yeah, it's weird. But I remember I saw Jiu-Jitsu and I was like, yeah, I like it. And somehow wrestling wasn't weird to me. And so then we started the practice next to Wing Chun. We started to do like our own small grappling group, basically no gi. And I think because also the history is that I've changed a lot of Wing Chun coaches because I didn't like them. And I think I changed Germany, then I went to Denmark, and then I finally found somebody from Lithuania that I also ended up leaving because it was a pure pyramid scheme. And then in some point, 2005, I told people all what I know, how I have to lie to them and everything else. And then we left 2005 February, and then we just back to this point we have done already like a couple of years of jiu-jitsu, even more maybe. And we did a little bit while we did karate and everything else, and then during the Wing Chun time already, when it was pure Wing Chun, we already have a steady, like a first generation group, like I don't know, 6 people that did already jiu-jitsu. And it also happened that I don't know why, but I started to become more interested of just fighting at all. And we did, I don't know what was the period. Maybe it was for a year, or maybe it was something, I don't know how long it took or lasted. We did Bloody Thursdays in like once a month. We called them Bloody Thursdays. And that was a time when we put helmets and groin protection and shin guards and small gloves a little bit, and then we fought. We tried to test or something, And what came out was all the Wing Chun fancy stuff really didn't work, And what worked was I get hand behind your neck like a tie clinch, and then I could elbow you to the face,
Yeah.
That was very efficient. I could grab your head with both arms like a tie clinch and knee you in the stomach, or in the face. That worked.
You're right.
And even if somebody has seen a double leg from the instructional or from the match, they could just do it. It worked. And grapplers, the people that had some, even somewhat grappling experience, had an immense advantage over the people that just did Wing Chun. And that was really interesting to us. That it was crazy, like a like an advantage.
Yeah.
So that kind of start the questioning cycle. That really, and all the time the traditional guys are always saying you
Right.
need to do 10 years, to make it work or something. Those myths. And then you see a double leg from the TV and you can do it. So that brings some questions.
Yeah.
And and finally we left, yeah, and then we opened up a jiu-jitsu and MMA school. Basically, we added some wrestling and boxing in, and then we started to compete in different competitions where we could do jiu-jitsu, play with rules a bit, and then we had some MMA fights also. 2005, that
Yeah.
6 of them I think in one competition we had, and then five we won. So that turned some heads that we weren't that everybody knew we were training somewhere in a basement or whatever. So we were doing and trying to build and go to maybe seminars in Finland because we're poor and we couldn't afford asking Brazilians to come to Estonia or whatever. So Finnish people were ahead of us like 4 years, so they had some established clubs and way more money than we did. So we traveled there to see some famous people back in the day. So that's basically how it started, and then it was really unorganized. And I guess my martial arts journey is also full with different styles.
Right.
And then finally, I actually was worried that I changed so many styles. Like I tried some point also some kickboxing for 6 months, Aikido, Tai Chi, Wing Chun, karate, and I was kind of worried then that I'd never find my own thing, because
Right.
I didn't like some teachers, and I'm not a very conflicted person, but I was like already getting worried. But then I found jiu-jitsu, and then now I'm here. Like after 22 years, I'm still doing this. So
You
maybe,
finally
yeah,
pieces finally came together, and
yeah,
you found what you needed to be doing, right?
yeah. Because I think I tried kickboxing a little bit because clearly I can move my head away from punches, I guess, a little bit. But it's still I didn't like the roughness, I guess, because it's still hard on a body. And so jiu-jitsu, I guess I don't think I have that that fighter mindset that I'm willing to take it all the time.
Right. Right.
But jiu-jitsu gave me that still ability to test it for real, but it's still
Mm-hmm.
grappling. We can discuss philosophically is it a fighting or not, but it still was real, compared to what we did. And so that was interesting, and yeah, I'm still doing this. And
That's great.
yeah, in some point also, it's not I think maybe it's maybe irrelevant for my martial art journey, but I was also a stage fighter.
Oh,
Like,
really?
yeah, like we did choreographed fights. I fought in restaurants also. There was one place, let's say, we fought like I don't know, a couple of times a week. We did played. Somebody was angry at somebody, and then we had rapiers, and we fought on
Nice.
the stairs, and that's how I got a couple of cars, and I lose half the teeth, like one chunk of my teeth also. So because of I done a lot of martial arts, I have very good coordination.
Yeah.
I can mimic different things. I can, almost look like a boxer if I want to. And it was not hard for me to modify my coordination to also learn sword fighting, so to speak, and rapier. And you have to kind of miss by purpose. You can't
Yeah. Yeah.
really attack people with swords. So I also did that. I think lasted that period maybe a couple of years when we did actually like we went to the parties. They invited us and we did some shows, and so
That's cool.
it was really cool because we dressed like old like D'Artagnan and stuff,
Nice. That's very cool.
so that's also a little bit part of the journey that I was able to be a part of that's kind of stage fighting phase in my life. So it's I've been around, so to speak, and
Yeah, you've had some great
it's been a
experiences.
journey.
It sounds
So
like.
so I hope I cleared a little bit how it all started.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. I want to tell you how I got kind of keyed in to you. So about 8 years ago, my friend Jim gave me the BJJ Globetrotters book,
Oh,
and it was a big book. I like small books or audio books. So I was like, I'm not going to read this big, huge book, but I was intrigued. So I started reading it and ended up just loving it. So I read the whole thing, and it was a really cool thing. And then about, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, I just noticed the BJJ Globetrotters, their videos on YouTube. So I started kind of looking at from their camps.
Mm-hmm.
So they were doing camps then. Yeah. And then I just happened across you at one of the camps in the video, and I was like, wow, this stuff speaks to me. I like what he's doing. So it's interesting. I was intrigued, and I watched several of your videos. I even bought some from BJJ Fanatics when they came out. But for some reason, I wasn't ready to dive in at that time. Have you ever had something that you were exposed to and you like it, but you're not for some reason ready to just dive in? So that's kind of where I was. And then later, it kind of came full circle. My friend Jim, who I train with regularly, he discovered your work and started talking about it. And us talking about it just kind of refueled my old interest in it. So we started really like diving into it and really been playing with it a lot and just loving it. So it's funny how everything comes around like that, though,
You know that the Christian Grauert World Tour ended in Estonia.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the book actually, the last trip, he comes to actually Estonia. It ends in our camp. So I was there.
How cool.
Yeah, so, so it's interesting that he did the book, and, now I kind of work with him, and we're, in a way, business partners or something. So, and
you guys do a lot of camps too, right?
Yeah. So, I in that sense, not in a Globetrotter world, I don't consider myself a business partner, but yeah, in camps, right. I like the camps, I like what he does. So I kind of ended up next year is 12 camps. I do 10 of them,
Wow.
So it's like, it's my obsession or addiction or whatever, because they're cool, and, it's kind of like escaping the real world. And I can afford, so to speak, that my wife is understanding, and I don't have a day job. I run a gym, and then I can leave when I want to because I have help in there. So I can do as many of them, and that also kind of a little bit launched me and gave me exposure, so to speak. They really helped me. Yeah.
I was going to say that's where I'm sure a lot of people initially heard about you or saw you or got exposed to you, and now it's kind of growing bigger than that, and you've got other ways people are finding out about you, which is great.
Yeah, I clearly love podcast, because I'm really appreciative that people find that I'm interested for their audience if they want to introduce. So that's another way to reach more, and maybe maybe the way I do or say things, maybe it resonates with somebody. And then they can go on because, look further, because the Globetrotter camps are one way to reach people, like, let's say, in camps, or then, through the YouTube. So, yeah, this exposure has been good, and also maybe not good in some way. I don't mind. It is what it is. I don't say it in a negative way, but it's the exposure comes with criticism, people. Right. Misunderstanding certain things.
True.
But I also need feedback, because how to approach things. Maybe I have to change certain things, how I present, or I always want to hear the critique about what's the misunderstanding part, so I can maybe address it.
Right.
But
that's important.
Yeah, but I also feel like it's a little bit what I do is it's somewhat a paradigm shift, because turn your back and be fine, and all those mantras that's been in jiu-jitsu for so long, that I grew up with the sentence, don't turn your back, turtle is a transitional position, but now I know that sentence is wrong, and we have to actually say it differently. I would even jokingly say it like, don't turn your back when you don't know what you do,
That's great.
And because just that really like dumping that sentence, don't show your back. If that would actually help anybody, we wouldn't see any back takes, Clearly that sentence doesn't fix the problem, so to speak.
Right.
And so I feel that there's a lot of half sentences and one I always also bring up sometimes when I talk about it is, as a kid, young male, I grew up with a karate ideology, and the karate, there was a sentence, I hope I say it correctly. Karate nisente nashi was karate never attacks first. And that was the ideal of the martial art,
Right.
And but when I grew up, then I found out there's a second half of that, and I don't know how it was in Japanese, but basically the whole sentence is karate never attacks first, but if necessary, hits first. And it's totally,
that adds a lot to it, doesn't it?
yeah. So I understand. So why would you let yourself bullied? If somebody attacks you first, you're allowed to defend yourself and hit
Sure.
first. So, but that's totally different sentence.
Yes, it really
But
is.
maybe other people in karate knew that, but I didn't. And it was I know that I know the sentences sometimes in a behind the text there was that karate is nisente nashi, and so I feel like that. Don't turn your back. It's like the same thing, kind of like it's like a half sentence, because sometimes you have to because you can't turn in, but don't do it in a way that it will expose your back to the chokes or hooks or whatever. There is a way to turn your back that wrestlers do it all the time.
Exactly.
So
No,
yeah,
you described it perfectly. It's a paradigm shift because there is always more to the equation than just don't do this. When you first start out, they say don't extend your arms too, right? Don't push up on people and extend your arms. But later you learn there are certainly times where you use extended arms for frames. You don't leave them out there forever, but you do extend and there's several things like this. And I like how you're bringing light to it. And as far as being more well known and sometimes getting some negative feedback, well, first of all, it speaks to you and your character that you're open to feedback, and you will actually kind of consider, okay, is that something I need to look at in how I'm presenting or whatever. But other side of that, there's always going to be haters. Some people are just jealous when people are rising up and changing lives and impacting lives, and if it doesn't fit with what they're used to or their narrative or their viewpoint, then they're just trash on it without even investigating it fully, without even trying it. They just kind of rain on it.
So I always feel that because early when it was 2017 and stuff, so the reputation I have gotten, I understand it also because we were moving backwards. We were trying to going to find those 0 points, like I say, go to the less mobile positions, and then I guess the reputation also was risen a little bit, like oh, you're making people stalling. But my point was always that let's go to the beginning, find the trench, and then build on that. Let's build on that, but we find the 0 point, so to speak, and so that was what I had to do, kind of to understand where we have to start, so to speak.
Yes.
And so that, but a lot of people, I guess, saw the earlier stuff, and maybe that was their thing, and maybe they don't study. But like Joe Rogan says, like never read the comments. So, but in a way, I don't mind. Sometimes comments are a bit weird, but also I have to understand where they're coming from. And maybe there's some legitimacy there that, okay, they don't get this and maybe this and this. So I will read them and I will try to understand them. And then I try to, if I know they're not right, there's no reaction. And if they're like, oh, it's actually, there's some point to it, then maybe I change something, because
you take the Bruce Lee philosophy of absorb what is useful, right? So if there's something useful for you, great. But if not, let it go.
Because I think the most of the traveling and everything, that's been really like life-changing for me, because I am like a stoic, blunt, so to speak, and I kind of jokingly blame my upbringing or the the environment. I'm not saying like anything bad about my mom and dad, but I mean like that era.
Yeah.
And so that's been also what I'm trying to become better at, because I know my disadvantages in the social interaction aspect, and so certain things allow me to go deeper because I'm very obsessive, and certain bluntness is there that I'm trying to improve on, and so it couldn't be like, it wouldn't be that that turn off, so to speak. So I understand, let's say, what I've done and sometimes how I look and seem. So
Yeah, well, one thing is, I talked before about I'm interested in, primarily first self-defense or, self-defense within jiu-jitsu. And I've done a lot of arts too, like you. But then from that to, as especially for an older person, being able to slow things down, be defensive and all that. And I thought that was maybe the extent. But I was watching your videos, and Preet has a lot of free video stuff on his defensive BJJ website, so check that out. Way down at the bottom, there's some competition videos. So I was watching those, and I'm not familiar with who it was representing your work, but there's several examples of matches, and at first he's being just super defensive. People could even call it stalling, but pretty much every time at one point he changes it around and goes on the offensive, usually with a leg lock or heel hook or something, and pulls it off with a win. So, I mean, that was pretty impressive, too, to see it in competition as well.
That was a Raul. That was the Amsterdam guy.
He's very impressive.
Yeah, he broke the internet after that.
Nice.
Yeah. So he was weird. The weird part was like, the criticism has been always, I think it's better to say critique or something, critique has been like, oh, where's the evidence? Who uses that? And is it competition tested? So we were like, Raul was willing to do it. We were like, okay, let's go to competition and let's produce, some evidence. Not the best evidence because we're not going to the super high level,
right.
but it was like advanced grappling industries competition, purple belts and up.
Yeah.
There was enough also in some of the black belts were there, some brown and some purples. So, and we made a decision because matches were 5 minutes, and we made a decision consciously to go there to pull turtle, so to speak, and try to test, pressure test, like least almost half of the match. And then we will have enough time to also build on attacks and, try to maybe win a match. But we didn't go there to actually win the tournament or win, because we were because his own weight was round robin. So the 4 matches were guaranteed. So if it would be because absolute actually was a bracket, and Raul won the absolute, but we thought absolute was also round robin. So maybe knowing it was a bracket, we maybe wouldn't have done it because one loss you're out,
Right.
So we wanted actually a lot of matches. So we thought the absolute was also the round robin. So we took a risk and then tested it, and it was what it was. So we showed our backs to the unknown opponents, to us. And the purple belt level is already decent to test it on because it's a fresh idea, we don't know how good we are, blah, blah, blah. And so, but so the critique has been also, it wasn't, they didn't know and blah, blah, blah. And then Raul was so good. And I didn't actually know that Raul has that switch that, in the video also I was like, Raul, let's go. And then he inverts and right away to leg locks.
Right. It was
so he had that
cool.
He had that switch. So I didn't expect it actually that we will get those wins the way we did.
You were just testing the concept, but he put it to a whole nother level. So.
Yeah, so it turned out that, it was weird because in that tournament, there was one walkover to Raul. So we actually won that match, but the grappling industries, I think it's rigged a little bit, the point system, because he should have gotten from that walkover 3 points because it is a maximum win, Yeah. But he only got I think 1 point. And that's why he ended up in third place, because he didn't get the maximum points because he just got if you win by submission, you get 3 points. I think, if it's a draw, you get 1, or if it's a win just by points, it's 2 or something, whatever it was. So a walkover should be like a submission win,
Okay.
So because it makes sense. And that's why he didn't get to the finals, because the one walkover. And then he didn't get the points. So we were hoping to actually meet one Polish guy that won the tournament there, won the bracket. But we didn't get that because the walkover points was, it wasn't correct because he didn't lose any of the matches.
Right.
And then he got he only went to semis. So that doesn't make any sense because the walkover is not Raul's fault.
Nah. It's not. Well, in any case, you were able to test the concept in a very impressive way, and
Yeah. So
yeah, opened a lot of eyes, I'm sure.
yeah. So we know occasionally, and also I think another guy, maybe you know Mercatso, the artist in
Yeah,
jiu-jitsu world.
yeah.
So he actually has also, and I think I don't know from the top of my head what is his channel. So he recently, like I think a month or month and a half ago, did it the same way that he had he's older grappler, so he had only one guy
Mm-hmm.
in his bracket in the age group.
Yeah.
And so first fight he won, second fight I think he lost, or it was the other way around, I don't know. And the third fight he decided that to test the defensive structures. So basically, he pulled turtle, played running man, turtle, blah blah blah, and then it was also like I was really enjoying that because he's he likes what I do, and he's also went to the competition to test it, and the guy was also a black belt, his opponent. So there's people around, doing crazy things, going to
Yeah.
competition and showing their backs and testing those things.
Nice, nice,
I
nice.
still know it's not a world class, and not, not against the world best, but it's still something. So we take it as it is.
Absolutely, and that's exciting. Exciting.
Yeah.
Do you have? How often do you get over to the United States and to do seminars? And do you have any representatives over here for your stuff?
I I don't have, so to speak, representatives.
Okay.
I guess I would call representative somebody. Let's say Chris Baines is in UK.
Yeah.
I guess the person I gave black belt, and there's other people like in Russia.
Mm-hmm.
I give black belts, and in somewhat they do what I do, and somewhat they do other stuff, because I guess from me they get like defensive ideas and that kind of part, and from everybody else they figure out the rest. I'm not claiming to be expert there. I have my specialty, so I always appreciate when people, like Raul. I gave Raul a brown belt, so people that work with me and get that defensive part from me, so to speak. So in America, I don't have at the moment anybody like that I think has given me that honor, that Preet, that can I get a belt from you or something,
Yeah.
or I think maybe I'm doing the disservice or also some people, but in a way that it's not that close to brown or black belts. And I think I'm traveling. Let's say I was in Santa Maria, I think, for two weeks in September. I think it was August, I think. And I'm coming again in. There's a U.S. main Globetrotter camp, U.S. main Portland. Yeah.
Okay.
And there's a 1 week long Globetrotter camp, and I'm coming there, so to speak. So usually I tend to 2 or 3 times I tend to cross the Atlantics. And right now also I did. I was in close to Philadelphia. I was in a Dragon gym.
Oh.
Because I came just last week from St. Bart's. There was a Globetrotter camp.
Yeah.
And before that, I was a weekend in close to Philadelphia.
I wish I'd have known about that.
Yeah, so my schedule is public on my Defensive BJJ site, so everybody can see it. So
All right. Great.
you're not actually alone. There's like people that I know that are so to speak following my work, and then maybe I'm visiting quickly US and I'm gone, and then they go like, you were US? I didn't know. I was like, my schedule is public, so I don't know. Yeah, so
well, I'll definitely put a link to your site, and so people can follow the schedule, and I'll follow it closer, so I'll know next time. But
let's say to just add a little bit more. I know there's enough. Let's say I would call them fans that are I guess want to know more about my work and stuff, and so there's enough interest, I think, from states. So that's what I say, but. Like really like serious like a belt promotions, whatever, no, but I think there's clearly interest in States and Canada, clearly.
I would agree. I predict in the coming years you'll be coming over here more, I'm sure, because people are going to want to bring you over. I want to ask you before we leave about your family. Tell us a little bit about your family. I know you have a small child, I think, and just tell us a little bit about that.
So yeah, I have a son, 1 year and soon 5 months. So 23rd December is gonna be 5 months. So he's born 23rd July last year.
What's his name?
Marvel.
Nice.
So Marvel Mihkelson. It kind of goes together well. Clearly there's a backstory why the name is like that, and it's for me it's actually a very Estonian sounding name because I say it Marvel. It's a different R than English speaking.
Uh-huh.
I was happy. I was happy to have a son because usually it's a life-changing moment, and in movies sometimes you have those oh reaction,
Right.
So, and it was a pretty hard road for us with my wife that we have had a couple of miscarriages,
Oh, sorry to hear that.
and yeah, those are usually harder on females than in men. And so it was, yeah, like years in the making, so to speak, that we wanted to have a kid. And I think it happened in a very right time that when we got the news that this is it now, I was very happy and I didn't feel like, uh-oh. So because,
Wonderful.
yeah, and at the moment also I think I'm in a happy place with my wife because before before her I haven't had actually like a long relationship. My history is very weird in that sense, and now we've been together I think almost 9 years.
Nice.
So yeah, before her I was almost quitting on things like let's leave it. I was old enough, and I was like maybe it's not happening for me. Like fatherhood or a marriage or whatever. So I don't consider like it was everybody else's fault. It was me and my lifestyle, and I have some like shorter relationships, but they never worked out. And so and the funny story I would say that my good friend Daniel from Sweden, and he told me the story. He's also remarried. He told me the story of being honest, like second time, really. And he said that he said to his current wife, I'm very good friends with both, that okay, you never come between me and my kids. He has two kids from previous marriage, and my job and everything that provides, and then are you okay with that? And if you say it like this, it kind of sounds really harsh.
Right.
And but that's what it is, that your kids and stuff. So I got really inspired by him, and he's helped me a lot in my life anyway. When I had the harder times and stuff, I lived in Sweden for 3 months or more maybe when life was different, and so he helped me a lot, and I kind of we get along, and then for my current wife, I told that jiu-jitsu is first. That is what provides. That is what I do. That is my life. That you never come between me and jiu-jitsu. And she was okay with that. And I was very afraid to say it because
Sure.
I know how it sounds, but it was also honest because I've seen my friends or when they don't say it,
Yes.
and then the relationship has gone to not in a good place because then the expectations, oh, stay with me more and more, and then but I want to do jiu-jitsu, and then there's conflicts.
Yeah. Then they get jealous of your jiu-jitsu and it
Yeah,
becomes a
yeah,
big
and
thing. But yeah.
so I'm very happy. It was a hard thing to say to someone, and I'm very happy I did it, and she understood that this is my life.
Man, that's great.
And then this is I only have like one statistics. I've done it once, and she is my longest relationship, and we have a beautiful kid.
Man, that's
So
wonderful. Wonderful.
yeah, so I'm not gonna say that I recommend this to everybody because I don't know how it works out for everybody because like the cockiness of this, but it worked out for me, and we are happily together. With all the relationship, I guess trouble and ups and downs and everything
Sure.
like it is. But now we have a family, and yeah, so I'm very happy where I am, and because of her, and that's her like we call that another very weird Estonian saying that sounds weird that we have a saying that I would call she has a patient of the horse. Patience, you have to understand. So he has a
Yes.
patient, and what we mean by that, that when we go to plow with the horse just goes, yeah.
Yeah.
When you plow the field, the horse is like a robot, just goes.
Right. Steady.
And yeah, steady. So my wife has a patience of the horse to deal with me, to bear me, so to speak, to allow me to go to camps, and I'm here again in Germany, so to speak. So I can live my life and I can do what I do because of her.
Wow.
So
That's awesome.
I give all the credit to her because she has that characteristic that allows us to function, so to speak. So I'm really appreciative.
Well, it sounds like you certainly found a great one, a great mate, a great,
It
great
took a
wife.
while.
So you have, it's worth it, right? Worth the wait.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm happy to hear, that you
Yeah.
have the family now and that you're doing so well. It sounds like a really wonderful and exciting time in your life, and your brand, so to speak, is growing. People are learning about your work, and a lot more people are getting into it and enjoying it. So you're making an impact. So really admire and respect that, man. Keep up the great work.
Happy to hear that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you very much for coming on today and letting us get to know more about you and your life and your work. So props to you and much respect for what you're doing, buddy.
Thank you, because I do what I do, and it's always nice to hear that somebody appreciates the work, and because sometimes I don't know who's listening, and then the seminars is one sign, but also podcast and stuff. So it's another sign that I must be doing something right. That people are reaching out and want to talk to me. So this is really, really important to me. And I really appreciate that you invited me to your podcast.
My pleasure and honor, sir. Keep up the great work, and I will keep following.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Talk to
right.
you some near future.
Yes. Take care, buddy. All right. Really enjoyed that conversation with Priit. What an interesting and innovative guy he is. All right. This episode is brought to you by Breathing for BJJ. And Breathing for BJJ is a 31-day online video program that I spent 2 years in developing, and it's designed to transform your jiu-jitsu experience. There's nothing more important than your breathing. It makes a profound difference in your jiu-jitsu experience. Optimizing your breathing takes your jiu-jitsu experience to a whole new level and has a huge impact on your performance. Learning to regulate your breathing can completely transform your jiu-jitsu experience. Being able to slow your breathing down when you need to, create energy when needed, breathe when in uncomfortable positions and situations, and to find the calm within the chaos are skills you need to master to create and achieve the optimal jiu-jitsu experience. This program uses a biomechanical approach to actually target and strengthen your specific breathing muscles, creating efficiency and effectiveness in your functional capacity to breathe. It's time to make breathing the foundation of your BJJ. All right, up next is the Make a Difference, Make an Impact segment.
So I dealt with something today that kind of knocked me off my feet a little bit. One of those unfortunate things that pops up really sets you back. Especially when you're working and really driving towards something. And obviously this isn't specific to me. Everyone has to deal with things that they don't want to. No one has smooth sailing all the time. But I was sitting in my living room, pissed off, angry at the world, thinking about all the ways that this unfortunate situation is going to be detrimental to what I'm trying to do. Really feeling defeated. But the more I thought about it, the more it became evident that I was wasting my time. Because realistically, whatever happened, it happened. I can't change that. But what I do have control over is the way I internalize the situation. My perspective. Do I want to see the circumstances good or bad? You know, that old glass half full, half empty concept. So I began thinking about how I can take this unfortunate situation and rather than suffer because of it, you know, how I can benefit from it, make it an advantage. When you really think about what a setback is, it's kind of a unique thing because it's an opportunity to take a step backwards and reapproach the challenge that you're facing. But this time, to come back better than before. To show the universe why it's going to take more than that. It's time to dig deeper now. Time to push yourself to the next level. The world wants to keep throwing problems your way? Good. You'll just keep finding ways to get better. In life, so many of us are lucky to have the freedom to pursue our passion. You know, and we do that tirelessly. But a big part of that is the ability to be agile, to adapt. To find ways to win when you hit a roadblock. A lot of the times that ends up being the difference maker. One of the reasons I love doing this work is because I talk to so many amazing people. I hear so many great stories about these brave individuals battling illnesses, tough times, but still making a point to run, to work out, you know, to excel in their daily lives at work with their family. And again, it just puts everything into perspective. Why shouldn't I be able to transform my situation? Which, by the way, pales in comparison to what some of these people are dealing with. This is life. You know, here are your puzzle pieces that are assigned to you. Now figure it out. Nothing can't be solved or made better. So I hope anyone listening to this, going through that rough stretch, I hope you can take that step back and really re-examine what it is that's in front of you. Don't be torn down by it. Grow from it. Because when the dust settles, you'll come out way stronger than you were before. And I assure you that the dust will settle. It always does.
And that's going to do it for this edition of the show. As always, I thank you for listening. Hope you're enjoying the show. Please like and follow us on social media and help us spread the word by reposting our posts and telling others about the show. You can leave comments on the website at www.graciejiu-jitsurocks.com. You can also go to iTunes and leave comments as well as rate the show. And we would appreciate a 5-star rating, which helps us with our standing in iTunes. You can also leave comments on our YouTube channel. If you have suggestions for the show, please don't hesitate to give those. We always like feedback and suggestions. Okay, that's going to do it. So until next time, this is Marty Josie, and I'll see you on the mat.